King Crimson has been in the news lately. They appear to have a movie about 1982. I was finished with King Crimson by 1982. I have a lot of experience with them. They weren't finished with me, but it's hard not to say a lot of things all at once when it comes to Robert Fripp and King Crimson, because there's a lot involved and there's a lot at stake. But I'll start with, I think, it's squarely the most important thing right now, while the issue is the disciplic succession of Adolf Hitler to Nosferatu's Jewry in Israel and what is happening, being done to Gaza, because King Crimson bears a huge responsibility for that having been allowed to happen. And as usual with the British, it comes in the form of weaselry. The weasel words of Robert Fripp. He jumped up on one toe, as I remember, to wiggle with self-regard twice that I can remember. Once, maybe I'll mention. But the important one was he was a fellow who used to gloat that he had a friend who toured with the dervishes. See, the coward Fripp imagines himself, even though he was at the receiving end of something that Elon Musk and Bill Gates had come up with, a brain beam. He imagined that he was in touch with Allah. He saw himself as a priestly type dude who had sentience, and God spoke to him. You know, when it's George Bush and his pals having a practical joke at this poor British eccentric's expense. And when I was about 19 years old, I was very battered and very confused and trying to go to school while deaf. Not completely deaf yet, over 50% deaf. I'm over 98% deaf now. And convinced me to study Sufism because I respected his speaking well of Islam. And I was fortunate enough, because of the situation that had been brokered by Michael Foucault, the Ayatollah comedian, and Ronald Reagan, you know, the catastrophe, or supposed catastrophe of the chasing out of Bonnie Sarter and from Iran. I was really lucky. I got to study with Syed Hussein Nasser, upon whom be peace. A very well-informed scholar on the subject of Sufism. And he made books available to us that wouldn't have been made available to us otherwise. Taught us about Frithjof Schoen, Suwardi, Avicenna, and the idea that perceiving the divinity, you could prepare yourself to become closer, which is what the yap of King Crimson was about. I loved all of these people. I loved King Crimson. I still love Syed Nasser. They're just wonderful people. It seemed to be very wonderful people at the time. Now, I had an impacted neuroplasm, so the meditation was helping me, and the music was helping me survive the neurotrauma that had been inflicted on me. Today, it was reported that Pennsylvania police, for some reason, decided to tell on Israel about their stolen car ring. I don't know why. They claim they discovered a case of 20,000 inspection stickers from Israel. But this has been going on. I've been reporting and report. They were forced, for some reason that has never really been explained, to arrest John Schulman after he ran me out of town for testifying against them. And they never came back to talk to me about it or investigate what he did to me. Hold on, I need a hanky. And I've always given a lot of credit to the meditative element of Islamic mysticism that allowed me to find the neuroplasm and pop it. It exploded. But tampering by Peter Gabriel came along with this because, see, I didn't just cross paths with Fripp. I mean, I hitchhiked to St. Louis to hear him play, but I didn't interrupt his dharma. I didn't tell him what I was doing. I just wanted to saw the concert and said hello and left. But I interviewed Peter Gabriel one day. We wrote a poem together, and Fripp sent me a phone number. I left a message, and the message ending up on the album So, and the song That Voice Again. And Amanda Harcourt, his secretary, starts bothering me. And they were slumlords. They were at war on theft. These people who ran the sexual revolution for the big P&I, like Jagger and Lenin, were actually trafficking sexual slavery through the Israeli forces. Of Bernard Wadmaker was my neighbor. He was Attica State Prison psychiatrist. And my reputation got mauled by the Zionists. The Zionists had this cringeworthy girl from Swarthmore who tempted me with her virgin rag, and I repulsed her temptation. And my reputation went into the skids. The Zionists were like, "Oh, you coulda." And they were setting up this story that Adrian Belew told Zappa. He coulda had a virgin, and because he didn't, John Lennon was shot. And they said that was my fault. I could have had a virgin, but because I didn't, John Lennon was shot, and that was my fault, according to Frank Zappa. And Peter Gabriel put it on That Voice Again, right? And he has a yada yada yammer dude who's like the Hamas people who set up Nosferatu, who's gross genocide of Gaza. And they have, this guy in here in Tacoma waving this virgin rag when they release COVID, right? And it's all clearly psychopathy in drama representation. And the police are like, please leave your name, your telephone number, the nature of your request, and who you wish to speak to. They either are what's going on or they don't care what's going on, because it has been made known to them. I mean, these are public videos. So somehow I managed to tell a little bit of that cock and bull encounter that led to the Robert Card massacre up in Maine. When I was studying with Nasser, I was living at Tyler Art School. Because the people I knew at the governor's school, Kaisa Dawes, who went by Daya, she was friends with Dermond. Raymond Geiger Mike McGarvey of the Gutter Snipes and some of his occult gang, Will Zell. Garvey gave me Buckminster Fuller to read, and Zell was in the Gurdjieff Society in Allentown with Walter Hodorowski, who Fripp later introduced me to in West Virginia. And when I dropped out because I couldn't hear well enough to follow my studies, I went up to Mount Desert Island. And Zell was a real creepy person. But he was in this Gurdjieff Society I wanted to know about. I don't know where they get the idea that I went to Mount Desert Island to get sex. I mean, but they tell that story because they set up an ultimatum mission with the Venus flytrap. The girl had needle tracks and a tattoo of the Grim Reaper pointing at her vagina. She was coming from a place called Maxwell House. And John Stockwell was the board of directors of Society for Human Ecology. And Richard Borden said the only reason he wasn't in the CIA was because of cutbacks. He was with this girl, Lisa Cassidy, and she had ties to the Pittsburgh gang who had kicked my butt because I could have had a virgin. And when I refused, John Lennon was shot, so it was my fault. And a kid named Brian Richmond. He's real hardball. He's a Teamster type of like a whack you job. And so I also knew one of his friends, Abira Ali, who was a real dark Indian type who was raised by two Jewish Holocaust survivors in poverty with her sister. And so she in Pittsburgh. So Zell out in Philadelphia at the Tyler Art School, Abira Ali was out there with Daya of Dermond and them. And members of the Gutter Snipes like Wademaker, the psychiatrist I mentioned. And I was going downtown by bus to study with NASA. So, but I met Zell at Tyler Art School and went up to Mount Desert Island because of the Gurdjieff connections. I liked the music in Crimson. I wanted to know more about it. And they set me up with this, what they called a fatal attraction. You deserve HIV because you could have had a virgin and saved John Lennon. But John Lennon was executed, and I was castrated by King Crimson because Zappa started saying that virginity proves rape, and Yoko Ono started telling all of the gangsters on death row that Will Zell was a leader of the Jewish Defense League protecting the honor of this virgin. And why don't they? Well, they got Seattle to poison me in the mouth. A big, horrible boil came up on my lip. And they're giving me these things that say tulip and COVID-19 a year before COVID-19 even happened. I have them online. You can look at them. Police don't care. I went to a meeting of, I called it the Wuhan Tea Club. All these girls knew. I mean, I have a book I paid $50 for on the Qing Dynasty and the Opium Wars. It tells the story of these generals, right? These women were 19, 20-year-old, spoke English perfectly, did perfect calculus, were from Wuhan, and knew every detail. Of that book, when I talked to even a reference to the historical figures, they went into it long raps. And one of them dragged me by the hand like to pull me into the bathroom. And out comes Shifty, like this. He's wandering the campus like this. Oh, he's lunging around, wandering the campus like a Burmese arrestee. And they have this girl named Anal Kisser. Yeah, they said I kissed the sewer grate in isolation because I was popping the neuroplasm using meditation. It was under hypnosis when they had me in custody in Iowa. So they get Anal Kisser. from Syria. Then you look at the Allegheny View. It says, "Frog bites my ass, kiss that frog, kiss my ass." It gets right. So that they were the Ringo Starr and his friends had set the whole thing up. John Lennon. The evidence is clear. There's no body of Lennon. There's no way to show, whatever Hollywood did with that grisly thing, Season of Glass. Penis Gabriel's attaché was Crocag Reguster's lawyer. Her name was Amanda Harcourt. She's supposedly with hair. And they come and say that it must be the season of truculent machines, and that's supposed to trigger me. If I'm pure, I know that means season of glass, right? And they say the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And they claim they made an intercept in 1984. Does anybody remember anybody saying anything, a public warning about the Zionists being behind the AIDS attack and Gail Burstyn should be arrested? There was no intercept. This was all set up. Ken Crimson are the voodoo doctor Svengalis behind Nosferatu's program. Ken Crimson cannot wait to take a dive into a swimming pool off the coast of Gaza. Adrian Belew is going to open the concert for Tel Aviv 2. They're going to have new Tel Aviv. They're going to have Chaim Weizmann Hospital. And it's going to be revamped, remodeled. They're going to build back better. And they're going to sing a Yes song. They're going to say, "Your time and its news is captured for the Queen to use." Do, 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 do.